treat your tech stack like your recruitment and HR efforts. This is the first time that I heard anyone say that, and I even Googled it after, and I couldn't find any like articles uncovering that. A lot of people are familiar with the treat your tech stack like a product, have a roadmap, and like engineers, blah, blah, blah. But this is a really cool angle, and there's so many different ways that we can slice up that analogy. So maybe we can start by just like unpacking the core analogy, how that kind of came to be. What if every new tool had the same scrutiny as like senior hires? I've seen companies like spend more time hiring a junior coordinator than they do vetting a 100K tool per year, signing up for a 2-year contract. Why do you think companies often apply less rigor to 6-figure Martech investments than hiring decisions?
Yeah, and it's interesting you picked that analogy because I think there's so many ways that we can kind of dive into it. And I think you nailed it. Like we invest heavily in our tech stack, and it costs a lot of money. We're committing to at least a year's worth of contract, and so it requires, I think, in my experience, the same level of rigor and scrutiny as it would hiring an individual. Maybe it's not as high care. Obviously, with humans, you need to have higher care, but it does certainly warrant just as much of a high touch experience, in my opinion. And, the reason why I've kind of formulated that opinion and that analogy is because I think over time and over my years of experience, I've seen how quickly and rapidly we adopt tech stack. And oftentimes it just ends up leading into tech debt for a lot of companies. Unless you do kind of that upfront due diligence and that, really thoughtful, intentional approach to investing in your tech stack, I think you're oftentimes setting yourself up for a lot of issues down the line. And so I think that's really where it all stems from, is having that same level of intentionality, having that same level of rigor in investing in tech stack as you would in your people.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's like a cool way to think about it. Like we're obviously the humans of Martech podcast. So it's a really cool analogy that's on brand for us. Maybe we can shout about job description. So obviously like one of the first things that you figure out when you're going to hire a new person, you have an open rec, you're trying to figure out like what are the roles, responsibilities. I've never really thought of it this way for buying Martech, but I think it's very similar to creating a job description for an open rec. You're making a list of like what are the things that we need to do, what are the use cases that this person or this tool is going to end up doing. You're thinking through, features and requirements. What process do you think you have that's similar to like a job description for scoping out the role of new MarTech tools? And how do you avoid this idea of like buying a solution or hiring someone in search of a problem?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think even taking a step back before you get into the official job description and the specific features you want to get, you almost need to do a bit of a scoping exercise. And so, using that HR analogy again, I think anytime you want to create a headcount, you have to back it up with a business case and justification of why you need that headcount before you can even go through the process of developing a job description and starting kind of your recruitment process. And so similar with MarTech, I think you need to identify the need as part of your scoping exercise. And so I kind of look at it as like three levels of need. You kind of have your operational need. So what is the gap right now that you are trying to address, or what is the gap that you currently have? The second level of need is really the opportunity cost. So what is it that you're not able to achieve because of that gap that you have? And then the third is, I think, sort of that strategic impact. So what does this gap, if you're able to fill it, what does this unlock next? How does this level your company up? How does this level your tech stack up? And so really identifying those three levels of need and ideally quantifying the impact of those, three levels of need. So what is the actual opportunity cost, based on efficiencies or like additional campaigns or like dollars, whatever that looks like for you? What is the strategic quantifiable impact? I think that really rounds out a justification and validation, not just for yourself, but also for executives or like decision makers in your companies to say, okay, you know what, this does warrant an investment. So that to me is like almost a prerequisite step before you even get into the details of like the features and the specs and like scoping out different candidates or technology to really assess like what's the best fit for you.